A 9-year-old girl vanished into the darkness during a rainstorm. 25 years later, no one can explain where she went, but investigators now believe the answers may have been hiding in plain sight. It was a cold, rainy morning in Shelby, North Carolina. While most families were still asleep, a mystery was already unfolding that will haunt investigators for decades. 9-year-old Asha Degree had vanished. She hadn't left behind a note. There were no signs of forced entry into her home. No evidence of a struggle. Just an empty bed and a family desperately searching for answers. Hours later, several motorists reported seeing a young girl walking along Highway 18 in the darkness. Before anyone could reach her, she disappeared into the woods. More than 25 years later, investigators are still searching for the truth. This is the disappearance of Asha Degree. Asha Degree was a bright, shy, and respectful 9-year-old who lived with her parents, Harold and Aquila Degree, and her older brother, O'Brien, in Shelby, North Carolina. Those who knew Asha described her as well-behaved and responsible. She enjoyed spending time with her family, going to school, reading, and playing basketball. By all accounts, she lived in a loving and structured home. Nothing in her daily life suggested she was planning to run away. That is one of the reasons this case has remained so difficult to understand. Investigators have long said there was no clear explanation for why Asha would leave the safety of her home in the middle of the night. Sunday, February 13, 2000, seemed like an ordinary day for the Degree family. Earlier that weekend, Asha had played in a young basketball game. Like many children, she was disappointed after her team's loss, but family members said life quickly returned to normal. That evening, a storm moved through the area, bringing heavy rain and strong winds. For a short time, the neighborhood lost power before electricity was restored. The family spent the evening together before everyone went to bed. Harold Degree later said he checked on both children during the night and everything appeared normal. But sometime during the early morning hours of February 14th, investigators believe Asha quietly packed her few belongings into her backpack and left the house. She walked out into the cold, rainy darkness alone. No one inside the home knew she was gone. At approximately 3:45 a.m., a truck driver traveling along Highway 18 reported seeing a young girl walking south on the side of the road. Thinking it was unusual to see a child alone at that hour, he turned his vehicle around to check on her. According to his account, the girl ran from the roadway into nearby woods before he could speak with her. Another motorist would later report seeing a child matching Asha's description in the same area. At the time, neither driver knew they had likely witnessed one of the final confirmed sightings of Asha Degree. As daylight arrived, her family realized she was missing. As the morning of February 14th unfolded, concern quickly turned into panic. Asha's family searched the home, calling her name and checking every room. When they realized she was nowhere to be found, they contacted law enforcement. Within hours, officers, deputies, search and rescue teams, neighbors, and volunteers began combing the area surrounding the Degree home. Fields were searched. Wooded areas were carefully examined. Roadsides were inspected for anything that might explain where the 9-year-old had gone. Investigators quickly learned something that would change the direction of the case. Several motorists had reported seeing a young girl walking along Highway 18 during the early morning hours. The descriptions they provided closely matched Asia. One truck driver later told investigators he became so concerned that he turned his vehicle around to check on the child. But before he could reach her, the girl ran from the roadside toward a wooded area. Moments later, she was gone. Those eyewitness accounts remain among the last publicly reported sightings believed to involve Asia. For investigators, they suggested that she had left her home on foot, but they still didn't answer the most important question. Why? Why would a 9-year-old child leave the safety of her home in the middle of a cold, rainy night? That question continues to define the investigation. Days into the search, investigators reported finding items in a nearby storage shed that drew their attention. According to public records, the items included everyday objects that investigators believe could be relevant to the case. Authorities examined the area carefully, looking for evidence that might explain whether Asia had stopped there during the night. While the discovery provided investigators with another lead, it did not reveal what happened after she left the area. The search continued. Weeks passed, then months. Every new tip was investigated. Hundreds of interviews were conducted. Despite the enormous effort, there was still no sign of Asia. More than a year later, the investigation took another unexpected turn. Construction workers uncovered a backpack that had been buried along a highway in another North Carolina county. The backpack was wrapped before it was buried, helping preserve it from the elements. Investigators identified it as belonging to Asha Degree. The discovery was one of the most significant developments in the entire case. But instead of answering questions, it raised even more. Who placed the backpack there? Why was it buried? And what happened between the moment Asia disappeared and the moment her backpack was hidden? Those questions remain unanswered. For Asia's family, the backpack offered proof that the investigation was still moving forward. But it also served as a painful reminder that their daughter was still missing. As the years passed, investigators refused to give up. Advances in forensic science renewed public appeals, and new investigative leads continued to breathe life into a case that had never been closed. For years, the disappearance of Asha Degree remained one of North Carolina's greatest unsolved mysteries. Investigators continued to review evidence, follow new leads, and encourage the public to come forward with information. Although the case never left the attention of law enforcement, there were long periods when few new details were released publicly. Then, years later, the investigation entered a new phase. Authorities announced renewed investigative activity, including searches of multiple properties connected to individuals who had come under investigative scrutiny. Investigators also focused public attention on a green vehicle that they believed could be significant to the case. These developments represented some of the most substantial public updates in years. Search warrants and public statements outlined investigators' belief that additional physical evidence and witness information had led them in this new direction. However, it is important to understand what these developments do and do not mean. Search warrants are investigative tools. They allow law enforcement to collect evidence and pursue leads. They are not findings of guilt. As the publication of this documentary, no one has been convicted in connection with Asha Degree's disappearance, and the investigation remains active. That distinction matters. Throughout the years, investigators have repeatedly emphasized that they continue to follow the evidence wherever it leads. For Asha's family, every new development brings hope that the truth may finally come to the light. For the public, each announcement serves as a reminder that this case has never been forgotten. More than 2 decades have passed since Asha disappeared. Children who were her age in the year 2000 are now adults with families of their own. Entire neighborhoods have changed. Roads have been widened. Businesses have come and gone. But one question has never changed. What happened to Asha Degree? Somewhere, someone may still hold the missing piece of the puzzle. It could be a memory that once seemed unimportant, a conversation that never made sense until years later, a vehicle seen at an unusual hour, or a detail someone has carried in silence for far too long. Investigators continue to encourage anyone with credible information to come forward. Even after all these years, one tip can make the difference. True crime documentaries often end with theories. This one ends with a family. For more than 25 years, Harold and Aquila Degree have lived with the unanswered question every parent fears. Where's our daughter? Their search has never ended. Neither has the work of the investigators assigned to the case. Until those answers are found, Asha Degree's disappearance remains one of America's most heartbreaking unsolved mysteries. If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing for more carefully researched true crime stories. Our goal is not to sensationalize these cases, but to tell them with accuracy, respect, and compassion for the victims and the families still searching for answers. Thank you for watching, and wherever this story may one day lead, may Asha Degree finally be brought home.